My name is Seydou Doumbia. I'm the Dean of Medical School of the University of Science, Technique and Technology of Bamako. And I'm the Director of University Clinical Research Center. I am an alumni of Tulane University, the School of Public Health. I was graduated with a PhD in epidemiology in 2002 under the supervision of Don Crostat, who was the chair of the Department of Public Health, and Professor Eric Johnson, who was a professor at the epidemiology department.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about COVID and how Tulane alumni are involved in the response. So first we wanted to just get an idea from you at the country level, how things are going. So when did people first become concerned about COVID and coronavirus?
It was only in March that the first case was diagnosed in Senegal, and then people in Mali start to be concerned and worried that where the disease may be in Mali, but maybe we were not able to test or to diagnose, or so there was a lot of concern about that. But technically, our lab was already prepared since late January because we have a BSL-3 lab here at UCRC at the Faculty of Medicine. So this BSL-3 was already prepared because it was the same lab who was used to test for Ebola during the Ebola epidemics. So we used the same facility and the same people who were trained with a colleague from NIH, who was also by chance, who was here at the end of January for research on Lassa, and who also, coincidentally, there was also an epidemic of Congo creamy fever. So they train our staff with RT-PCR on the diagnosis of COVID. So we start thinking that in anyhow, if COVID come to Mali, we should be ready to do the diagnosis. So our colleague from NIH, Hans Feldman team, train our staff to do the diagnosis, and also leave about 1,000 of diagnosis kits, RT-PCR kit for testing, and we had additional 1,000 of kit from NIH to get our team ready for the diagnosis. And so then when the first suspected cases occur in Mali, so we did the testing, and it was until March 25th that we get the two positive cases in Mali, and there were 2 people coming from France who was tested positive. And then since then, you can see how the disease has spread to Bamako and in some part of Mali. And now we are reaching about 300 people tested positive with corona.
And where are those people located? Mostly in Bamako?
Well, yeah, 90% of the people are located in Bamako. So because when the first case occurred, end of March, so the government closed, all the border, and and coincidentally also, I think everywhere, US and Europe, so all the border was closed. But unfortunately, there was also another flight who came from France around the 12th of April, certainly who among those, you know, you don't know if there could be, you know, additional people infected. But since then, what we are seeing is mostly the community transmission, meaning that now the virus is being circulating in Bamako mostly. But the first case also we tested, you know, it was also some people coming from France who went to Kai region in the western part of Mali, near the border of Senegal. So, but right now we have most of the case in Bamako and surrounding area of Bamako.
Most of the resources are in Bamako. So is there a plan in place of how are you going to do surveillance when you get outside of Bamako where there's more limited resources, or is that, you know, is that something you guys have worked out yet? Or, and I know it's
yeah,
the Ministry of Health also that you're working with. So
yeah, actually our lab did most of, you know, more than 50% of the testing since the epidemic started. But we have 3 additional lab who are also involved in the testing. You have the Mary Institute, which is supported by the French, and the German also provides some kits to them for the testing. And we have also INSP, which is the National Laboratory of Reference, actually, who collect all the suspected case and dispatch between different labs. So we have also the Elbema, which is Usman, who is also my colleague and friend Usman, who is an alumni of Tulane, who is involved in the testing. So we have now 4 laboratories in Mali, in Bamako. But as you said, we don't have, outside of Bamako, there is a little capacity of doing PCR. But we are relying mostly on surveillance. And so there is an algorithm, and the health worker has been trained to do this algorithm. And once they have suspected cases, so they do the swab, and they have also the necessary equipment to do the swab and send to the lab, central lab in Bamako. In fact, even Kai is about 600 kilometers from Bamako, but in the late March, the first week when we get cases, we receive 5 suspected cases from Kai, which is about 600 kilometers. The only problem for that is just, you know, it caused some delay before we get the result to them, and then to isolate the patient. So that has been the problem. But we have also cases coming from Timbuktu or from Gao, and Timbuktu and Gao, they are more than 1,000 kilometers from Bamako, and you have people, the MINUSMA, which is the UN soldiers, some of them become positive as well, but there is a flight between Bamako and Timbuktu and Gao, so they bring sample to our lab or overlap. So we have also cases who has been detected in Mopti, and also in the southern part of Mali, in Kuchala. But yes, despite the distance, but we have people trained outside to collect sample and send to Bamako.
So it sounds like to prepare for coronavirus, you know, the Ministry of Health in collaboration with the university and yourself, they've prepared diagnosis. They shut the country down to travel. What other responses has the government applied?
Well, you know, the general recommendation of WHO, which is social distancing, and school has been closed since then. Mass gathering has been also reduced to 50 people, funeral, and so warning has been done that to reduce funeral, celebration of marriage. You know already that that's the dimanche in Bamako, c'est le jour de mariage. You hear that a lot. So there is a celebration, a lot of celebration every Sunday for marriage in Bamako, so which draw a lot of people. So mass gathering, so advice has been done to reduce marriage to not than more than 50 people, and also funeral and how we call it, the curfew, meaning starting at 9 from 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. So there is a curfew to limit people movement. But there have been also discussion whether Bamako will be closed, isolated from the rest of the country, but that has not been applied. But there has been also some recommendation. And the health facility has been upgraded, so there has been, they expand the capacity of a health facility to, there has been also a recommendation that all positive cases be isolated to health facilities. But unfortunately, because of the capacity of the health facility and for social and for social and cultural reason also, we have some positive people who stay home, but who confine themselves at home. But that has been some problem. I think that has also contributed to spread the disease, and perhaps also some late diagnosis case, you know, so there has been also some logistical problem for physician, and you know, you have one line which is called the green line for people to call. Sometime is, you know, there may be some delay to collect a sample from people, logistical delay for collecting sample to send to the lab. And so, you know, and the return of the results, maybe between then, you know, the person may have an opportunity to infect other people. So, and in some case also, when there is a delay in people to call the mobile team to come collect. So or some people, you know, with a vulnerable condition like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and older people. So when they died, so before they died, they may have, you know, contaminated other people. So I think all this, the fact that all this measure has not been implemented rigorously has contributed to the spread of the disease.
So you mentioned people with other underlying illnesses have there been severe cases of coronavirus, of COVID? And if so, did they go to the hospital? You know, how is the hospital handling those types of situations?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what I said. Normally, every positive, unlike in the US, when you are positive, you don't have symptoms, so you can stay home. But we recommend it because of the social and cultural condition. You've been here in Mali. You see that in one family you can have, 10 to 50 people in one compound, and it's very difficult to be isolated at home and not get contact with anybody. So in other words, one person infected can have about 10 to 20 contacts surrounding him. So for all this reason, we recommend that every person tested positive should be in the health facility. So at the health in hospital of Ponger, we have 4 sites in Bamako who has been dedicated to receive all positive cases in hospital of Ponger, in hospital of Ponger, National Hospital of Mali, and Senam, and so those different sites has been dedicated to receive patients. In fact, in Ponger alone, we have 2 sites, and you remember the clinical facility from which was built with Don in Poitiers has been also used for like a special facility to receive patients with severe condition, and so because that's the only place where in Poitiers we could handle with severe cases and with a respiratory. So they renovate the place with a respiratory, with a respirator and other resuscitation equipment to handle the cases. But unfortunately, yes, as you said, that most of the cases came late, and that's why we also I think today we are about 18 case of death in Mali, and most of these cases, as you said, they are above 50s, or they are people with diabetes or high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, mostly, unfortunately.
Well, I will have to let Dr. Krogstad know that they're using the research center there. He'll be tickled to hear that.
Yeah.
So how do medical professionals there, do they have the personal protection equipment that they need? You know, that's been a real problem here. Is that a problem in Mali as well?
Well, definitely has been a problem. You can see that we are even trying to make one of these, and you see on it's a sample I received today, and they asked me if we were interested to have something like this, so which is made with tissue. I think it's much convenient than the surgical one we have, which is very expensive, and now it's become even a problem, environmental problem, how to deal with this, because you cannot hold for long. So yes, all the health worker has been complaining that, in fact, it has been a serious problem that the health worker were and did not want to touch the patient because if they are not protected. So it's happened that in some cases that people with severe condition, they sometimes they have to turn around from one place to another because if people are not protected, they don't want to touch. And in fact, we have many health workers. I don't know how much percent, but we have many health workers now who has been infected because with the initial people, the initial positive cases, among them there was clinicians, there were people working in the lab who were not protected enough. And even this week in Hospital of Angers, they have to close one clinics and do the hygiene because there was one physician who has been infected. So yes, that has been a problem, and we did not have enough, and the cost went up. So the importation of this equipment, personal protection equipment, become a serious problem. Now, also, I forget to say that there has been a recommendation of wearing the mask. So now the government is making it as a requirement, but at the same time also they are encouraging local workers or companies to make local mask with tissues. At the same time also I just ordered about 6,000 of masks from China. We are waiting for them because we also want to make sure that people working in the field are protected. So yeah, personal protection has been a serious problem. I was discussing with someone from the hospital who was telling me that they spend how many millions, but it did not for if you have 800 people working in one hospital, and if every worker has to use 2 to 3 masks at least a day, you can imagine how bad the need is just for one hospital. Don't think about even the other hospital or the other health facility. Now, if you come to Angers, even the patients are not coming. We have very limited movement of patients to the hospital because everybody is also concerned that there is patient with COVID in the hospital. So then that's another unintended consequence of COVID management.
You talked about the government requiring wearing masks, and previously you talked about the government promoting the social distancing and isolation. How does that get communicated to people? How does it get enforced? Do people generally follow the recommendation?
First of all, there has been a delay. Mali was one of the last country in West Africa with Sierra Leone to have a positive cases, and the population were even worried whether our lab was performing enough, if we are not missing cases or but and then when we get the cases, the first 2 cases, and then we still were having case like 2-3 cases a day. And so at that time it was okay if all the measure was rigorously applied, that the disease will not spread like today. But unfortunately, there has been celebration of marriage, funeral, and social distancing has not been really applied. And I think you can understand how, as I told you, that if you have in one housing compound or one household, we have, 10 to 20 people, social distancing is a difficult thing. But it has been applied in government offices or at workplace where people apply the social distancing, but in the community, it's really difficult to apply. So that's why also this has been contributing to the spread of disease. The government has also reduced the duration of the work. So people get off now at 2 p.m. So the work start from 7:30 to 2 p.m. just to reduce the contacts at the workplace. But unfortunately, yes, I agree with you that social distancing has not been really applied rigorously. And all the measures the government has recommended, the only things which work really well is the curfew, where from 9 they you have the police and the military who are making sure that people are not walking around at night. But beside that, because of the social and cultural and even religious, also because the government did not decree to close mosque, for instance, but some mosque, some religious group has decided themselves, because when they see the first cases, they decided to close the mosque. But most of the mosque, you can even hear now the mosque.
Yeah.
You see their attention. Yeah. So there has been a lot of discussion about, but it has not been decreed. The government leave to the religious authority to make sure that they are applying social distancing, or they are deciding themselves to close the mosque. I know also for the church, same thing also, but for the church also, they try to respect the social distancing, but they have not been closed. But we were all in other country, like I know in Senegal, for instance, in some part of Dakar, so they have decided, the government has decided to close the mosque, but all this measure has not been rigorously applied in Mali.
So switching gears just a little bit now, and we'll try and wrap up because I know it's late there. What are there any research opportunities for addressing coronavirus in your population, or what do you consider to be important research questions regarding coronavirus and Mali that need to be answered?
Well, I think there is a range of research opportunity, even starting by, social science research. The government has put in place, different organizations, different committees. We have a technical committee with multi-sectorial committee to enforce or to make recommendation about decision to reduce the spread of the epidemics. So this technical group, I'm part of this technical group, but they made, recommendation like, for the government to reduce the burden of, reduce the cost of electricity and providing, some financial support to vulnerable groups and so on. So they have also a scientific committee to guide the Minister of Health about the different decisions, like the use of a mask. So we have to provide evidence base that why the government should recommend the mask, and some decision whether, for instance, what to do with, should we keep people with minor symptoms at home or to the hospital. So many of this decision has been based on scientific advices, but as I said, that there is an opportunity for like social science research. One of the questions people were asking, how, why we are having late delay in the diagnosis of cases, why most of the people who died from corona has been diagnosis at the very late stage. So we had also that we wanted to understand, how, what's happened in this delay of the diagnosis, and then if the diagnosis come late after they died, how this has contributed to the spread of the disease. So there is also how the different network analysis, social context has contributed to the spread of the disease. We went from 2 to 4 cases a week, and then suddenly to spreading. So how the social network has really contributed to the spread of the disease, and there is a need for investigation of contact tracing, and how one contact from one contact to another. And you can see that actually we have some lawmaker who died from coronavirus, and yeah, it's interesting to understand, like we have most of the cases we have now, as I said, are intellectual, high intellectual, or wealthy. I will not say, but it's not the average Malians now. But like for the disease, you may expect, okay, you have maybe the poor people who are affected, but there is a general anecdote about that this disease is striking mostly people with a good wealth index anyway. But of course, we may expect that it may be spreading to the rural area. But if you look at the population affected in Bamako, it will be interesting to look at that. But beyond the social science part also, we have a very good opportunity to understand the biological part of the aspect of the corona. Like if you look at the contacts, you have contacts, some become infected, some not, some become severely ill. So you don't know what's the, we want to understand also the natural history of a disease. How people, some of the people become severely sick, and we don't know the type of virus also, because we see that in some case it's undetermined when you do the diagnosis. So someone is negative today, and then tomorrow, a couple of days or 3 days later, they become positive. So we want to also to understand the there was also, as I said, that whether the virus is more virulent here, or is it the same, if there has been any change in the genetics of the virus from Europe to US or in Mali. So of course also there is we need to understand it's mostly recently that we are seeing death at the hospital. As I said, most of the death could occur very late stage, even before they come to the hospital. But like today, we recorded like 4 deaths in the hospital, and the physicians are saying that we are seeing more severe cases with respiratory distress. So you want to understand also, you know, the link between the virus and the outcome of the disease. Those are research we are interested, as I said, in terms of natural history. Of course, also in terms of trials, we want to know, you hear about the famous chloroquine, when people are saying that, you know, maybe the African has been largely exposed to chloroquine. I asked Don about that, so that's what he think about the AQ13. You know, Tulane was developing a new chloroquine, but the chloroquine become very famous now in the world, and because of this pressure, the government has to allow the treatment with chloroquine. So whether the treatment with chloroquine or other antiviral drugs. So we are preparing, just before I was talking with you, I was working in a WHO protocol they call Solidarity, where they wanted to test, which involved, I think, about 70 countries in the world. They are trying to test chloroquine and some other antiviral drugs. So we are also preparing, you know, some protocol to test, you know, a range of antiviral drugs or antimalarial drugs, and their potential effect on the virus. And we are also very interested also to do more basic seroprevalence or seroprevalence studies to see whether we can rapid tests, because you already mentioned this, in a rural area or outside of Bamako, if we cannot do RT-PCR, what we can do. So we wanted to participate to some study to validate RDT test or some ELISA, where we can at least understand the level of exposure also to the virus. We don't know that, but these are observational studies. We are developing protocol. We are developing with NIH, with colleague, to see in our study site to know the level of exposure and to validate also this ELISA or this rapid test.
Okay. So we'll sort of start wrapping up. What specifically has your role been?
My role, first of all, as I've been in the middle of many of these things. First of all, my role as the director of a University Clinical Research Center, who has been instrumental at for the diagnosis of the disease. So, so that's we have supported the government in the diagnosis of the disease. The University Clinical Research Center also provide also resource for trials, for supporting the government for the trial of new treatment. And as my overall also is providing also scientific advisory to the Minister of Health. So the Minister of Health has put a scientific advisory committee, which I'm leading. I'm coordinating this scientific advisory group. So we have a meeting, a weekly meeting, and also a special meeting to address a specific question of the Minister of Health. Like the Minister of Health asked us the other day to provide or advise whether all contacts should be tested, for instance. So we had discussion to provide advice that what's the case, what the contact case definition, and who should be tested as the contact. So we provide advice to the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Health was having some concern whether people should be tested post-mortem, and if they are testing post-mortem, if this can be counted among the COVID death in Mali. So these are, so we provide also some, I am also in this, leading the scientific advisory committee. And also, as I said, we have also the multi-sectorial technical group, which is this committee has been also set up by the Prime Minister, which means the Prime Minister has put this committee to not only the Minister of Health, but other ministries like information, higher education, environmental, so all the sector, technical. So I'm also a member of this technical group to reinforce or make suggestion of decision at national level, like a decision to isolate Bamako, decision to close schools, and so these other decisions which go beyond the Minister of Health. So we are also providing advice to the government about this decision to limit the spread of the disease.
Okay.
Of course, also as a medical, as the dean, also we are now organizing with WHO's support. Last week, the WHO has asked what the role of medical school in Francophone countries. So we have the Association of Deans of Medical School of Francophone country. So we meet every week and also discuss what's our role, because now everybody has to rely on local resource, human resource, because if I want you to come support Mali, you cannot travel. So now we have to rely on our own resource. So medical school how medical school can also mobilize human resource, students and professors, and to support the contact tracing, to support all the control activities, and also guide in research needs, or to also help having multi-site research or multi-site, to share experience how each country are dealing with epidemics.
Good, good. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel is important that you want to share, or?
It's a very difficult situation, but I'm also proud that that I can be helpful and useful to be, to provide my expertise, my support to the government, and I'm also proud that our team, we have a very strong and well-trained team with our local resource and with support from NIH, with our collaborators. So we are already ready ready for the diagnosis, ready also to get all the testing done to Mali. So yes, I'm very proud to what we are doing, and I also hope that we're gonna contribute more with research, to guide and understand how these things, because we don't know how Mali or Africa, what will be the trend in Africa. And, in US, you are aware of that it's, first of all, when the epidemic was in China, in Europe, they thought that it won't happen to Europe. And when it was happening in Europe, so in the US, people has the feeling that it could not happen to US. And then we have the same feeling in Africa, but I'm very also worried what will happen, in coming weeks. But I have also be proud to serve the country and also to help controlling the epidemics.
You have less than an hour to get home before you break curfew, so I'm going to let you go.
Yes, you know that.
All right, Seydou, good to talk to you.
But the good things, they give us a special permission. So then even my driver, he said, when he said, I come from the lab who do the diagnosis. Oh, no, you should go. Don't.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Good to see you, Seydou.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.